off the assumption that we've got, oh, recording in progress. I'll start again. Well, hello for everybody who's listening. My name is Ed Gyles Jr. I could just launch into my introduction about myself, but the first thing I want to do is just let everybody know that about half an hour or so ago, I did email some handouts for everyone. If you didn't see it in your email, it might be in your junk box, but I got some sheets you could take notes on, as well as some sides that we can read through and take notes on to kind of get the full participation of it on here. If you haven't had a chance to find it, print it yet, feel free. If you don't have access to a printer, that's okay. If you could read it on your screen, you may not be able to take the notes directly on there, but at least we use it a key. Just kind of do the best you can with that. And then what I'll do now is I'll just go ahead and let Ray and Leslie take over, let them do their introductions, and I'll jump in with the actual instructions. So I'll talk to you in a minute. Thank you.
Well, we haven't done introductions. You see everybody on the screen. And who is Capitol Museum? What is your name? Turn on your mic.
Yep. There you go. Aaron Renfree. Sorry about that. It's my
Aaron.
I'm on my work laptop, so it comes up with Capitol Museum. So
Oh, okay.
I hadn't got a chance to switch it yet. So anyway, I work at the State Capitol Museum. So there you go. Sorry
And
about that.
Victoria, where are you?
I'm right here.
Let's see your video.
Oh, just a second.
Hello, Creeps. It's your old pal, the
That's
Working? Just a sec. Just a minute. Okay.
Hey, we can't see you.
It's not working, is it? I'm working on it. I'm right here in
Hit
this little box.
the video camera.
Huh?
Hit the video camera.
I know. Just was for some reason won't work. Okay. I'm working on it.
Oh,
I just said, it says unable to access the camera for some reason.
Leslie, can you
Probably because I did this on Father's Day and I don't know. I don't know how to fix it. I'll keep on it.
Yeah, I can't do anything with their camera remotely.
Well, anyway, Ed, you see all the names, so go ahead and get started. And we can't hear you, Ed.
there we go. So yeah, I already told my name, but if you forgot, my name's Ed, but I go by Hey You. That works just as well for me. I'll try to give you the brief bio here before we jump in. I've been for over 30 years, been a part of performing arts, stage, camera, actor. I've directed, I've done fight choreography, did a little producing, a lot of improvisation. Was with comedy sports for several years. I've actually worked for several years with Ray as a coach, leading these workshops, and just really enjoy it, have a lot of fun with that. I can add one new thing to my resume. I work in the education department, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and I've recently been certified as a transformative correctional communication instructor for that. So, member Toastmasters, a lot of public speaking and all of that fun stuff. So, a lot of what I do with my workshops and presentations is because I love performing. I know it's like to be a performer. I always try to take it from that perspective, what helps the performers do the best they can, and try to give you something that you could just take away and learn and just have fun in the process. And if you've worked with me before, one of my philosophies is I don't expect perfection. I want you to try something and fail at it. And if you're going to fail spectacularly, that's okay. Because I'm kind of the type of person who is a perfectionist, is really hard on myself and really try to work and get those details and everything. But at one point I had to realize, well, if I'm too afraid of making mistakes, then I won't know how far I can go with this. So once I give myself permission to be imperfect and make mistakes and look foolish in front of other people, we're all on the same page. We're all in the same boat here. And it's really something that will, I think, be helpful for everybody, is just coming into this session here, that when you're going through and you're taking the notes and you're working on these dialects that we're going to be practicing, it's really less about getting them right and getting them perfect. It's about knowing what to look for, how to prepare, and get yourself on the right track so you can start building confidence for yourself, and then just knowing that you can go forward from here and get more details and keep refining. Because when you're learning dialects, it's going to take at the very least weeks, and most likely months, to really just to get it to where it's nearly indistinguishable from a native speaker using that dialect. So everyone here is going to make mistakes, and that's okay. If I give you notes on something, it's not going to be, you did this wrong, shame on you. It's going to be, okay, let's shift our focus to this area and just try and see if we can, where it works, because you're going to be hit with a lot of stuff here. And when I do the particular dialects workshop, I know not 100% of it is going to stick immediately. That's why I've got the little note sheets that I emailed out, so that you can make notes of what we're doing as we go along. And again, if you kind of write it to yourself in the words that you kind of understand and connect and communicate with, it makes it a little bit more personal for you. And then you've got these references where you can go back, and when you record and listen to yourself, then you can listen critically for different areas and different aspects and say, oh, I missed it here. Let me try to remember and tweak it. And so what's going to happen over time is, once you get the feel for a particular accent and you know what you're supposed to do, first thing you're going to do is, if you're looking at a specific script, you're going to break it down, you're going to make those notes so you get those specific words right. But then over time, your mouth, it's like muscle memory. Your tongue, your jaw muscles that keep it open and closed, your lips, they're going to remember the shape that you made. And then that's going to make it a lot easier to just lock into that accent and be consistent with it. So if you eventually start improvising words where you're asked to say, okay, as your character, tell us about your family. What was it like growing up in the mansion? Or what was it like growing up on the ranch? Then you could just freestyle. And then when your mouth remembers that shape and you've practiced enough with specific word combinations and diphthongs and things like that, even if it's not 100% perfect, it's going to be a lot closer than you were before. And the more you practice, the more you're going to feel that confidence in it. But that's just, again, a long way of saying that's not where you're going to be at the end of 2 hours. That's not realistic. And I totally get that. And I'm not going to be grading you, and I'm not going to be saying you should be along here at this point. What I really want you to do is have fun with this. Give it your best shot. What I want you to come away with is, okay, this is the type of preparation I will need to do for a particular accent. I will now have a head start on a few basic accents, but these principles will carry over. And so if you're working on a dialect that is very similar to one of the three that we're talking to, then it's just a matter of maybe minorly tweaking the shape of your mouth a little bit, or knowing you need to do specific things on certain syllables or certain vowels, etc. But that's all character research you can do when you really dig in for the specifics. So we're just gonna, what we have is the first set of handouts. We're gonna have 3 different accents, 3 different dialects we're going to work with. The first is your basic upper class RP, or received pronunciation British. We've also got a Spanish base accent, and that is both for Latin American, Mexican, South American, as well as European or Spain Spanish. And then we have, your general New York accent. And then of course you could you could then further refine to say like, you know, Brooklyn, Staten Island, or whatever. Those are really more regional dialects, which we're not going to get into at this point. What we're doing is just looking at the overview and giving you a general base for these three areas, where then if you know you're reading for, you know, a particular character from a particular region, you know, you have resources where you can go and you can get those specific, very detailed regional dialects for them. But this is going to be a base just to launch off with and have fun. The second set of handouts I sent to you are scenes, are just basically monologues from plays by William Shakespeare. And the reason I chose Shakespeare, where we're going to be doing like maybe New York or Spanish accents with them, is because I want the focus to less be on what the character is trying to say. And you can absolutely incorporate that if you want to, but I want the focus to be more on taking words that are slightly archaic, slightly unfamiliar, but applying those rules for an accent you wouldn't necessarily associate with Shakespeare. We all go British, and we could maybe play around with British if we have time toward the end, but what would Shakespeare like sound like in a New York accent, or someone from Spain, like a, you know, Antonio Banderas type of Shakespearean presentation here. So it's just going to be for fun. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the notes from the first set of handouts, apply them to the second set of handouts, and we're just going to read through them. And the feedback will really just be, you know, more about, you know, what I'm hearing and what areas that you could kind of take a look at and give it another shot. And so again, it's going to be silly. It's going to be messy, and that's what I want. I just want everybody to just come into it knowing it's not going to be perfect, and that's just fine. But the more you play with it, the better you're going to get. So in the meantime, just have fun with how ridiculous it is hearing Shakespeare in these other accents, and just see how much of that consistency we can find and apply toward that script. Because if you get a part for someone who's from New York, and you could take those New Yorks and apply them to their dialogue, and it'll fit perfectly. But this is for the practice here. It's really just focusing on the sounds, and that's just what we're going to have fun with here. So what I'd like everybody to do at this point, if you haven't done so, is go ahead and mute your microphones. Because what I would like you to do as we're going through each of these sections and we're talking about each of these dialects, I want you to go ahead and make those sounds as we're doing them. I want you to kind of practice them out loud. And if everybody's doing it at once with the microphone on, it'll all just be kind of a jumbled mess. And we all know how that works when people talk over each other on Zoom meetings. But I don't want to discourage you from making those sounds. I want you to just go ahead, make the sounds with me, make the sounds on your own, because that's really how you're going to learn it. So if anybody does not have the handouts printed out, well, we're starting with the note sheets. If you don't have it printed out and you can't write directly on the sheet, that's okay. If you could bring it up on your screen, you might be able to make notes on a scrap piece of paper if you have something available. If you have not received the email that you used to register, maybe check your junk box. It might have been filtered there, because I blind copied everybody on the list just to protect your email addresses and identities. So they might be in your junk folder. If for some reason you can't access your email at all, I'm just going to do my best to try to be clear and walk through everything, and then we can see if we can get you those handouts for a later time. But I just want to make sure everybody has the best chance to really fully participate and try to get the most out of the session. So after we go through each of the sheets, I'll open up for some quick questions, and then we'll remute again, and then go on to the second sheet and then the third sheet. And then once we go through those three dialects that we have, then we'll jump into some script preparation using the second set. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and begin with the standard upper class British sheet. And so you're going to see some partial notes on here. And again, usually my handouts here is just so you can write these in your own words. This is the same thing I do with the character voice workshop for animation and cartoons, that if you could translate into things that you understand and what you're experiencing here, they usually stick a little bit better. But we're going to go ahead and begin with the physicality. And what I mean by that is, how do we physically hold our lips, our tongue, our jaw? How are we changing the sound chamber that the sound's coming through to make it sound more consistently like a native speaker of that dialect? So again, we can go into all sorts of detail on these, and this is not an all-inclusive sheet. This is going to be really get you the fundamentals here, just a good launching point and a starting point. And if this is an accent you're really interested in doing, or you have an audition where you want to do this type of character, I'll give you a couple resources at the end of the session where you can really dig a lot deeper in here, but this is going to be a good place to start. So for the physicality, first you want to talk about the lips. You want the lips to be tight. You know, you think, you know, the British stiff upper lip. Well, we're kind of thinking the stiff upper and lower lip, but they're not going to be opening wide, you know, a big, large hair. It's just about the minimum amount of opening when you're speaking. So that's just basically when your lips tight. Doesn't have to be like this, of course, but just don't let the lips maybe go more than halfway toward the gum line here. Try to keep them as close as possible. You also want the lips to be a little slightly forward, not so much like a duck, but where the lips aren't really brushing against the teeth. Just a little bit forward, lips tight, and the tongue, the tip of the tongue will be more forward as well too, maybe closer to the teeth than you normally have it. So a lot of the sound is going to be forward in your mouth. You can even think of the sound maybe originating just past your teeth, if that helps to visualize it. But the sound's gonna be very forward. So again, tight lips, forward lips, and tongue forward as well too. So you go ahead and make that shape now, and then what we'll do is we'll go to the first part of the notes and phrases. So when we're, I'm just going to give you a general note about vowels here in Britain. So just like in American English, most words have a stressed syllable. So in fact, the word syllable, we're putting on syllable, you know. So when in Britain, with British, it's similar in a number of different regions, but in particular in Britain, the vowel in the stressed syllable is usually said as that vowel sound. And all of the unstressed syllables tend to be dropped off or schwas, or just not really accent, just that little noise just in between the next set of consonants. So we'll play with that when we get to that first sentence that we're going to be practicing with, but just keep that in mind as we go through. The stressed syllable has the vowel sound and the unstressed syllables don't. It just schwa it or it. Now, I've got the statement here that says non-rhotic R, retroflex R. What do those mean? So the non-rhotic R is basically an R that you're not saying, you're not pronouncing it. So when in Britain, there are two times where you don't say the R sound. And this is something you want to know, because when you're marking up a script and you're new to this particular dialect, you will want to maybe look for these examples and instances in the script so you can make a note, maybe draw a line through the R so you're not saying that sound. So the two times you're commonly going to find that non-rhotic R or non-pronounced R is the final R at the, if the R is at the end of the sentence, and the R that comes right before a consonant. So so when you take the first word, yeah, we got that sentence, shorten the race for brevity. That's how we would say it here. Okay, I'm sorry, I just heard a little sound there. So if you say it in the US, it would say shorten. But if you were to say it with the standard upper class British accent, it would be shorten, shorten. So you're not really saying that R, and the reason is that R comes before a T, a consonant. So it's almost as S-H-O-T-E-N, Schoten. And then the second word, race. Now, that is not at the end of the sentence. It's not before a consonant. So that is the R we pronounce, and it's called a retroflex R. And basically what retroflex means is that you're pulling your tongue back and curling it up just a little bit. The way we say like, so if you were to say grr, you know, Tony's Frosted Flakes, they're great. It's that shape. So if you make that sound, then make a like you're growling, and then just be aware of how your tongue's shaped when you make that sound. A lot of times we make sounds without being conscious of what our tongue and our cheeks and our lips are doing. But think about that sound. It should be kind of like this grr, pulling back a little bit, curling just a little bit. So that's the retroflex R, or you could think of it as the American R. So the word race is just your typical sound. So shorten the race. Shorten the race. Go ahead and say it with me. Shorten the race. And now you'll notice that, again, the word shorten has 2 syllables. The first syllable is stressed, so you get more of that O sound, shor. And then ten. The TEN is the unstressed syllable. You don't have to do shorten. It's shorten. Ten. It's almost like TN. That's where that schwa or unstressed vowel is. So you go ahead and say, shorten the race. Shorten the race. Shorten the race. And just a little note, we'll kind of get to it a little bit more toward the bottom, but we're not really hitting the V in the. That's almost like a schwa too. So shorten the race. And then for brevity, and just ask this to yourself, do you think we're going to say that R based on the rules that we have, or are we not going to say the R in brevity? It's not before a consonant because it's RE, and it's not at the end of the word. So we will get that brevity, that American R, brevity. And again, bre, that first consonant is accented. So we're going to hit that eh, and then the V-I-T-Y. We're not really going to, we're going to schwa that I. The Y is sort of not a vowel for that. So we could have that little E sound at the end. That's okay. So it would be brevity, brevity. So we'll go ahead and say that whole sentence again. We're going to drop the first R in the word shorten. So it's going to be shorten the race for brevity. And then the word for, there's an R at the end there. That's a final R. So it's going to sound like F-O or for brevity. It's almost like you're running them together and saying for brevity is one word without the R, for brevity. Shorten the race for brevity. Shorten the race for brevity. Okay. Again, I'll open up for questions once we get to the end of this sheet here, but we'll go ahead and move down to intrusive R. There's a lot of weird R's in there, so. But the intrusive R is basically an R that it doesn't exist, but it shows up anyway. It's an uninvited guest in a way, but it actually serves a purpose. When you have a vowel sound that ends a sentence, and then the next sentence begins with a vowel sound, the R intrudes basically as a way of separating the two sounds. And this is almost an unconscious thing that happens if they're speaking, but when you're analyzing a script and you're looking for words where the intrusive R would come in, yeah, if the first word ends with a vowel sound and then the next word begins with a vowel sound, the same or a different one, go ahead and put that intrusive R in. So if we look at the first 2 words of that sample sentence, Diana offered me her drawing. You got Diana, which ends in that in that vowel sound. Whether or it's stressed or not, whether it's a schwa or whether it's the actual sound, that's okay. It doesn't matter. You're still breaking it. So Diana ends with that A, and then offered ends with an O, another vowel sound. So instead of Diana, it's going to be Diana, E-R, Diana. And if you were just to say Diana by itself, it could be Diana, but it's going to be Diana offered. So it's almost, the R could also be considered to be tacked at the beginning of offered, but it's easy to think of it as like right in between there. So it's like Diana offered, Diana offered, Diana offered. And you go ahead and practice that on your own. Diana offered. And it's okay if it sounds artificial. It probably be, well, any of these things that you do are going to sound artificial, but that's because you're training yourself to do it. And then once you do it enough, it becomes second nature. It's going to sound more natural as you do it. But for now, Diana Rawford, Diana Rawford. Yeah, over accented, over accentuated. Diana Rawford, Diana Rawford, Diana Rawford. So we'll go ahead and continue, and now we'll go to me, her. And again, that R is at the end of the sentence. So ask yourself, do you pronounce that R or do you not pronounce that R? We'll go to the last word, drawing. Now, this is a intrusive R that's happening between two syllables. Drawing, drawing. So you can also find that intrusive R between two syllables that are not diphthongs. And I'll get into diphthongs in just a minute, but it's not where you're sliding naturally from one vowel sound to another, but it's really, it's where it's breaking up like that. So drawing, it's going to be drawing, drawing. And again, if you think about the vowels themselves, the draw is accented, so you're going to get that ah sound, draw, ring. There's almost little I, but it's more schwalled, so it's drawing. It's almost like RNG, but you're getting that R sound in there. Drawing, drawing. So we'll go ahead and try that whole sentence together. Just repeat it with me. Diana offered me her drawing. Diana offered me her drawing. And again, it's okay if it's over accented or obvious or it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's really about the practicing and training your mouth to make that sound and make that shape as we go through. So I'll let you say it one or two more times, and then we'll go to the L sound. Diana offered me her drawing. Okay, so the L, lounging in the parlor. When we're doing the L sounds, think about it. If you were to just say in your American accent, lounging, lounging, you're probably feeling your tongue pushing against the back of your top teeth, lounging, lounging. In the British L is similar, but it's just the tip of the tongue pressing above the gum line behind the teeth. So it's actually placed differently. So our lounging is like lounging, lounging, lounging. The British R will be more up here, like lounging, lounging. So you might almost think of it as a wind sail, where if the tip of your tongue is up here and the L sound is pushing, your tongue is billowing a little bit against that sail, you might feel it around a little bit, but lounging, lounging, lounging. And so American lounging, British lounging. And I hope you're kind of saying that to yourself as you're going through, but just playing with that lounging. And in the parlor, same thing. And again, watch those R's, figure out if you're going to be saying it, parlor, parlor. And you might find that the tongue doesn't push as much because it's not right against the back of the teeth, but it's almost like a flick. That it touches up here, and then once that L sound pushes it, it just flicks away. Lounging in the parlor, lounging in the parlor. lounging in the parlor, lounging in the parlor. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and keep moving through. Again, appreciate your patience with everything here. So we'll go to the schwas. And again, I talked about this before, that we're really only using the vowel sound for the stressed syllable. Schwas aren't here. I picked these 6 particular words because they can be more tricky and sound a bit different than we say them here in the US. So, you know, the first word, secretary, secretary, just say that in English here, so American English, I should say, in your normal US accent. Secretary, secretary, secretary. That's what we're doing. We know now what to do with the R. We know now what to do with the vowels, but you know, the stress is on the first symbol. But because we're not unstressing, it's going to sound like secretary, almost like secretary, T-R-E-E, like it's 3 syllables instead of 4. That's how much that schwa drops it. So it's really going to sound like secretary. If you were to say secretary with a British accent, it's not going to sound right. So they would say it secretary, secretary, secretary. Go to that second word, preposterous. Again, we're going to lose a syllable because we're dropping the vowels there. So it's going to sound more like it's going to be post is where the accent's going to be. Preposterous, preposterous, preposterous. So PRE, we're not hitting that E, so it's still like preposterous. Laboratory, the accent they have is on the second syllable. We accent the first. Laboratory, 1 and 3, laboratory. They just hit that first one, so it's going to sound like, or the second one, I should say. So it's going to sound like laboratory, laboratory. Again, that O-R-Y is really just like T-R-E-E, tree, laboratory, laboratory. The word garage, we're stressing the second, they're stressing the first. So it's going to sound like garage, garage, garage. Vigilant is going to sound like vigilant. It's almost like we're going from the G straight to the L. Vigilant, vigilant, vigilant. Tribunal, the second syllable is stressed. So we're not even really going to get that I sound in there. So it's going to sound like tribunal, tribunal. That's a good example because you can get rid of that I, you can get rid of that A and just keep the U, and it's going to sound like tribunal, tribunal. I'll just go through each of those words one more time and feel free to say them with me. Secretary, secretary. Preposterous, preposterous. Laboratory, laboratory. Garage, garage. Vigilant, vigilant. Tribunal, tribunal. Okay, we're near the bottom of the sheet here. So next we'll talk, here we go. We're talking about diphthongs. So there are times when you're going to have the blending of 2 letter sounds coming together, and we're going to kind of think of it as being rounded. So we're going to take the Duke made progress on his schedule. So Duke, oftentimes we will say it in the US like D-O-O-K, put up your dukes, Duke. But that U is like a liquid U. It's almost like the letter Y. So it's going to go from an E to a use like Duke, 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 the Duke. Made, and again, the progress, we would just say it like that. but actually that O kind of has that diphthong sound here. So it's going to be like more like a U, like progress, progress, progress. The Duke made progress, progress on his, now we say schedule. The British pronounce that without the C sound. So it's like an SH sound. So it's going to start with shed. And then that U, again, it's a liquid U. It's going to have like a YU sound to it. Schedule. So it's going to sound, instead of schedule, it's going to sound like schedule, schedule, schedule. So the U sound is going to have a Y to it, like an EU sound. The O is going to have like a UO to it, like you're putting a U before the O, and then putting an E before the U for like Duke or schedule. Progress is going to be progress, progress. You're really just trying to round it out, so it's not a flat vowel sound. So go ahead and repeat the sentence after me a couple times. So I'll say it and then feel free to say it. The Duke made progress on his schedule. The Duke made progress on his schedule. Okay, I know at this point we're taking in a lot here, and that's okay. If you're not remembering everything on the R's and the vowels, that's completely fine. We're just practicing one of each of these things at a time. We'll go back and we'll kind of put them all together as we go through later. But for now, you're doing fine. This is good. This is good. So just a few common pronunciation mistakes, very similar to what we had up with the schwas and the diphthongs. So bin, I have been to the market, is going to pronounce bean. That particular word will be bean. I've been to the market. I have been to the market. For you, with the word for, again, that's kind of a Y. That is you're still getting that you, that kind of vowel sound. So you're going to drop that R even with that Y. So it's going to be for you, for you, for you. And again, almost as if it's one word, for you. You can think of that OR to be replaced by an apostrophe, F apostrophe YOU, for you. That'll work too. Very similar with to do today. So to do, to do. Now the word do, we're kind of keeping that ooh there, but that to is sort of a throwaway word. So it's just going to be in that situation, to do today. And you could, they sound very similar. So that's kind of a fun little warm up you can do. To do today, to do today, to do today. But go ahead and practice that. To do today, to do today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take a moment. If anybody has any questions on what we covered on that particular sheet, go ahead and unmute yourself and throw it out there. And then in a couple minutes, we'll move on to the next sheet.
Quick question, right on the last thing, I was having a hard time on the bin mistake.
Mm-hmm.
If I rewrote it, did you say like B-I-N, or I wrote it B-E-A-N, like bean?
Whatever works for you. I didn't want to tell you specifically how to spell it, but yeah, it's just like a lima bean or a jumping bean. Yeah,
bean.
so
I just couldn't quite hear you, whether you were saying bin or bean. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That's perfectly fine. Yeah, if writing it down as like lima bean, jumping bean, pinto bean, it's that same sound. I have been to the market.
Bean.
I have been. Yes. There you go.
Thank you so much.
And
No problem.
I had a question on the schwas. How do you know when to do? I mean, there's so many different ways that they do syllables, so many words. How do you learn all of the ways to say garage instead of garage, and secretary, I mean, especially on the laboratory type thing, and aluminum is like, don't even get me there, because
aluminium. Yeah.
Aluminium. There's it's just by usage, right? You just have to go with and figure it out and listen really carefully to British music.
Exactly. And this is where a really good detailed guide to a particular dialect is going to be helpful and useful. These principles will apply, but if you take this approach And then say you get to a book that really gets in depth, where it'll have more examples like aluminium. Or you might find that you were really focusing on a region. So if you want someone from the North Country, or if you want, someone from, let's say you want to get as specific as Liverpool or Manchester, and going with those specific regional dialects, there might be some tweaking there too. And you're going to get a lot more detail as well for any exceptions that you're going to have. You should ideally also have a list of those exception words that you will be able to look for and listen for. I had never really tuned into how schedule was pronounced until I watched Star Trek: The Next Generation. Jean-Luc Picard is supposed to be French, but that is a very British schedule that he says, it's like schedule? Oh, schedule. And then, after he said that a few times, it finally clicked. But it's that kind of thing too, really. You will get those. And again, when you're really digging in and getting more detailed, you're really going to fine tune it to really get to where you want to be as a performer. But again, here you're kind of getting an idea of the types of things you're going to need to be conscious for. And you could apply these tools to a script and get a lot closer. And it's, again, really just a really good starting place. The one thing I wanted to avoid doing was spend like 3 hours on a single accent and overwhelm everybody with what they felt they had to read, learn, and get right in that time. But thank you for bringing that up. That was really nice. I'm ready for the next question if anybody has one while I switch my AirPods here. Go ahead.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering what you recommend in terms of practices, in addition to taking, of course, coaching lessons. So would you recommend us to listen to maybe an audiobook read by a British actor, or watch a particular TV show, BBC, I don't know. Your thoughts?
I think my answer to that would be, it would be two-part answer. One, if it's
Can't hear you, Ed.
Ed,
Your,
we
your
can't-
volume is distorted, Ed.
want to watch Downton Abbey to pick up on those accents for both, like the family as well as the servants, so you get those differences in the regional dialects. But if you're not that much into, say, and strike your fancy, don't necessarily watch that because everyone says you should do on there. I think it's good. I think it's enjoyable. But watch something that you're willing to watch over and over again that really catches your interest. You might decide you want to watch the movie Snatch 12 times in a row just to really pick up on all of those street accents that are almost incomprehensible, or maybe In Bruges, if you don't mind watching the same movie over and over again. You might just want to go on a binge of Doctor Who if you wanted to, either classic series or new. Just watch out for Perry's American accent in there. He might throw you off a little bit. But I would, the second part that I would say too is just if you're using audio or video as a reference to listen to and absorb, ideally get it from a native speaker of that dialect. If you're watching the Star Wars movies and listening to Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, just remember he's Scottish. So he's doing a Scottish version of Alec Guinness's British accent. I would say Ewan McGregor might be really good resource for Scottish if you watch, say, Trainspotting, where that is from the area where he came from. So he is really intimate with his own natural accent. So just go into it and being aware. I mean, you may watch the Spider-Man movies and not realize Tom Holland is British, or Andrew Garfield is British, or Toby Maguire is American, but you get the idea. Just kind of do your homework a little bit. Yeah, find something that you think you'd be really into, and make sure that the actors aren't putting on in it. And it's not to say that they're not doing flawless accents. You just want to make sure that if you happen to be watching something where they accidentally forget an element, you're not inadvertently picking up a bad habit as a result. So maybe Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is not the best, example of that. But I don't want to slam that movie too much. I thought it was very enjoyable. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and go forward into the next. I'll move through these a little bit quicker because I want to give everybody some time to play around with some of these. But then we'll get some questions at the end of these two sections here, and then we'll do some readings toward the end here. So I'm going to go to the second page here. We're going to be talking about Spanish and Mexican accents. So again, as I said earlier, this is not just for Mexico, but it's also for Latin America, and it's also for Spain or European Spanish. So there are going to be, again, regional differences between these, but what I'm trying to do is really just focus on the commonalities, give you a base where you can work from. So I'll start with the physicality. So unlike the British accent that we were doing here, it's not about the jaw, the lips being so close together. They're actually barely touching when they close up. So it's not the stiff upper, stiff lower lip. And your jaw is actually going to be relaxed. So no chin up, old sport. It's going to be very low and relaxed. So feel free to give your jaws room to just kind of drop and open and close naturally and fluidly. If you don't know a good relaxation for these tight, tense jaw muscles, you can just do this real quick. Put the palms, or like the heels of the palms of your hands right here where they're touching. Find your jawline here, and then like right in the middle here, put the heels of your hands there, and then just pull down. You can feel some tension there, and feel your jaw sinking as you pull down. So this is a good exercise to not only loosen your jaw muscles and warm them up for performance, but a lot of times people carry a lot of stress in their jaw muscles. They tend to clench their teeth or get stress headaches as a result of that. So this is a good way to kind of relax that. But you kind of want to have that loose, relaxed jaw when you use the Spanish or Mexican accent, so that your jaw has room to freely move and open up, and it's less closed and restricted like that closed forward sound of British. This is going to be more relaxed and open. And then when the lips do touch, they barely touch. It's almost like a pat, tap, keeping as far apart or just keeping from making contact for as much as possible. Just enough to get that plosive sound, but no more. The vowels for Spanish and Mexican, this is really nice because they're always consistent. With the British, we were stressing the syllable in this, or the vowel in the stressed syllable. With Spanish and Mexican, you are having the same vowel sound each time, and each vowel only really has one sound. So the letter A is going to sound like ah, as in like I just got in a nice warm tub, ah. The E sound is going to be as in bed or get. It's going to be eh. The I sound is going to be E as in bumblebee. The O sound is going to be O. It's like the American O, but it's a little bit more constrained. But for the sake of today, don't worry about the specific shape of it here. Just know it's going to make O, like in gold, O. And then the U is going to sound like ooh, this is a nice tub. So the sounds, go ahead and repeat these after me. It's going to be ah, eh, e, o, u. Ah, eh, e, o, u. So whenever you see those vowels, it's going to be considered. You can mark them up if you need to. If you forget that the I is not an I sound, you can put a little EE above it. So you can E for that letter I. So The letters B and V are actually both very similar. There's a very slight difference between them, but the purposes of what we're doing today, we're going to treat them the same. So if you see the word vanilla, we can go ahead and take those vowels, vanilla. For those of you who know Spanish, that double L is actually pronounced a different way. You don't hear that L sound, but we're applying a Spanish dialect to English words. So you can go ahead and say that L sound because you're trying to say vanilla, but it's vanilla, vanilla. So you're still getting the vowels, vanilla, in a basket. Now, the B sounds very much like a V. So you can say basket, basket. If you were to do an actual B, it is only the barest touch. And the only difference between the B and the V is just the slight touch of the lips. But even if you say the B as a V, it's going to be close enough in most cases. So just go ahead for now, for today's exercise, if you see the letter B, treat it as the letter V. So it's going to sound like, and I want to get the vowels for you. So I'm going to say it's a little slower. Vanilla in a basket. Basket. Vanilla in a basket. I'll do that one more time. Vanilla in a basket. Okay. The letter R. Now, this is going to be unlike the R's that we've done here. Now, we were talking about our retroflex R again, where we're making that Tony the Tiger great sound with the tongue is curled and back a little bit. Grr. It's going to be different for Spanish because what you're doing is you're actually taking your tongue and you're touching it like above the teeth back here, like right, there's like a little ridge above your teeth, inside your upper teeth and the inside here. If you touch your tip of your tongue to that ridge and then just let it flick, it's going to sound like the, almost the letter D, but not quite. It's good, but it's going to have that sound. So the, I'm overdoing it. And if you overdo it, that's okay too. But that sound, the. When you say the word return, it's going to sound like return, 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 return. And we'll do it a little slower. Return, return. That's your R sound. If it doesn't sound the same, it's going to be one of those things where the more you practice, the more you get used to it. So don't worry if you're falling on it right now. So for kind of the same thing, a fury. Now, again, a double R sounds different when you're using it in actual Spanish language. But again, because you're applying the Spanish accent to English words, it's okay to say the R the same way if it's a double R. So fury. Return a fury. Return a fury. You should be feeling that flick along the ridge up here every time with the R. So again, we've got B's with the word rabbit, so say it as a V. So it should sound like David, David, David. So the whole word is going to sound like this. So I'm going to say it slowly, and feel free to say it with me. Return a fury David to me. Return a fury David to me. And depending on how thick the Spanish accent is, those vowels might not be as strong and might not be as pronounced. But again, for the sake of learning, it's good to really just focus on those sounds as you go there. So it's return a fury David to me. So we're going to take the TH sound. Now, as you know, in English, there are two different THs. The thank really has that sound to it. thank. And then there's like another word, like for example, this, where it's the, th, and the. So we're going to play with both of those sounds here. So when you have that harsh, whispery thank, it's just going to be like the letter T. You're going to get rid of the H. So it's going to be tank, like tank, tank, tank. The word you, and then when you see the letter Y, you're actually going to add a little bit of an H sound to it. So it's going to be hue, hue. And here you're going to have, it could be oh, oh. You can add that sound if you want to, hue, but for the word you, just don't worry about the O. Just go right to hue, tank hue for, and then this. This is the other type of TH sound. That's where it's less of a whisper, th, and more of a vibrating the, this. So when you have that softer vibratory TH, that's actually going to be replaced with the letter D. So instead of this, it's going to sound like dees. If you go to thank, it's going to be tank, letter T, and then the this is going to be dees. Thank you for these. And I'm going to give you a moment to just look at the word thermometer and just take your best shot at it on your own. And again, everybody's muted. I'm not hanging everybody, but just try to, based on what we applied so far, try to say the word thermometer on your own. Just go ahead and say it a couple times, and then we'll break it down together. Okay, so let's take that first syllable, T-H-E-R. So we say thir in thermometer, so that's going to be a T sound. So it's going to be ter, and again, the flick of the R, ted. M-O is the next syllable, mo, ter, mo, M-E, me, and then T-E-R, ter. Thank you for this thermometer. Thank you for this thermometer. All right. I know it's kind of messy, and that's okay. So we'll go to the next part here, the H's and the W's. So when you have the letter H, you're going to add a little bit of a K sound to the H. Like if you were to say Loch instead of Loch Ness Monster, Loch Ness Monster, you're going to be a little. What you're doing is you're pushing the back of the tongue up against the back of the palate here to give a little bit of vibration, just temporarily closing off the air as it's coming through your mouth. So if you're to make the H sound, it's gonna be huh, huh. But if you bring that up here, it's gonna be like you're going, like you're clearing your throat a little bit, but you're kind of feeling the back of your tongue at the back up in here. But you're gonna add a little bit of that push. So it's gonna sound like instead of huh, it's gonna be huh, huh. So hear a little bit of the difference there, that little huh. So if you were to say help, it would sound like help. And again, that might take some practice, but think if you're about to go patooey, that same type of sound where it's just rattling back here. Help. Help me with, and then this is going to be a tricky one. So the TH, again, it's that th sound, not the vibrating one, but the whispery th. So that's going to end with the T sound. And that W is going to add, like how we put that h in front of the H, we're going to add an H in front of the W. I know it's a lot to get. I just hope you got your pencil sharp here. But wheat, because we're adding that H to the W. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen that little clip from Family Guy where Stewie and Brian are getting each other to pronounce Cool Whip, and he kept saying Cool Whip, Cool Whip. It's kind of the same thing. So the W has an H in front of it. So it's Hui, Hui. So it's gonna, the word help is gonna be help me, wheat, wheat. Get that H sound in there. Wheat. This. Ask yourself what kind of TH that is. Is it a D or is it a T? It's going to be a D. So this is going to be dies. And homework is going to be fun. So we're going to add that K sound in front of the H for home. And we're going to add the H sound in front of the W for work. So it's going to sound like home work, home work, home work. And you'll notice it's very similar, that added K and that added H. It's just the H is not quite as intense. Homework, homework. And yeah, we're not pronouncing the E because it's silent. We're again saying an American word with the Spanish accent. So go ahead and say this sentence with me a couple times. Help me with this homework. Help me with this homework. And you can also say the me part as me. So it could be help me with this homework. Homework. Again, it's that variation of depending whether or not the accent is going to be very strong or moderately strong as to whether you're going to say that more of a US me or a Spanish me. Help me with this homework. Okay. The S is fun, pretty simple, or the Z, I should say. I was saying it's fun. It's pretty simple because the Z sounds like an S. So instead of zesty pizza, it's going to sound like sesti pizza. So sesti pizza. S-E-S, sesti, P-I-S-A, pizza. Sesti pizza. Okay. Now to the dropped T. Now, consonant clusters. Let's just break it down by word. IT apostrophe S, it's. That T we're going to drop in there. It's just going to be IS. So is instead of it's going to be is. Now true, we're gonna keep the T there because that's really just the beginning of the sentence. You really need to have that sound there. So it's going to be is through. And remember to flick that R. Is through. That TH, is it a T or a D? It's a D, it's that. Hurt. Now we're going to drop the T at the end of the RT there. It's just going to be her. That her. Me, the, and again, D sound, the most. So we got the RT, we've got the ST. We're dropping that T at the end of that consonant cluster. So that hurt me the most. The most. So the whole sentence is going to sound like is through that, and you could say that the T at the end of that because it's by itself. It's right after vowels at the end of the sentence, but not the R, T, or the ST. So is through that hurt me the most. Is through that hurt me the most. Okay. And now with last note on diphthongs. I picked a pretty fun one here because it really illustrates the diphthongs here. So in Spanish, you tend to, instead of blend the diphthongs together, round them together, they're a little bit more separated where they're two separate consonants. So purloin would sound more like purloin, oin. There's just more of a jump there. So rather than a curved ramp, it's more of like a set of steps. Oin, purloin. Automobile. So that diphthong of the AU is going to be auto. And you're going to run it together. It's okay to do that. It doesn't have to be a separate word. but the idea is you're having two distinct vowel sounds there. Auto, 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 auto. And eventually, as you get more comfortable with it, it'll blend together more. But you really just want to think about that separation at first. So it's going to be auto, and again, letter B, turn it into a V. Automobile, automobile, automobile. Tire, tire, tire. So we'll just go ahead and butcher this sentence together. Again, I don't care about perfection. Just try to apply what you can to it. That's why we got the notes. You could always go and practice later. So, pour louer un automobile tire. Pour louer un automobile tire. Great. We're going to go to general New York City now. Take a breath. Just relax. And I know we're covering a lot. There's just so much we can get in the session here, but I want to make sure you get these notes because there's, again, you're going to see some differences with New York City, but you're also going to see some similarities to what we've covered here as well, too. So with the physicality of New York City, I've been talking a lot. I'm going to take a sip. Okay. So it helps me to like imagine Robert De Niro, you know, maybe in Taxi Driver in front of the mirror or whatever, but just kind of almost that squinty flat thing. But the key thing here is the lips are drawn out to the sides. You kind of want to get them wide like this. And again, feel free to overexaggerate. It doesn't have to look natural. You want to over exaggerate so you train your mouth to do that. The more you practice you get, the more natural it's going to feel. But really, just your lips are pulled tight and drawn. It's almost as if strings are pulling on both sides constantly. If it helps to squint, that's okay. You don't have to squint, but you just want to think flat and tight lips, you know, whenever you're speaking with the New York accent. And again, regional dialects for these as well too. But this is just kind of general New York City, just a base for everything we're covering. So we'll go to the T's and the D's. Where they're a lot of times they're really just dropped unless it's like at the end of a sentence here. So if you take the word forget, it just could be forget, I forget. You know, you get that little T sound at the end there, but you're not really hitting that that R. You know what? We came across that non-rhotic R before, didn't we? But it just really is not the sound there. But you're getting that. But when you go to forget about it, and you're running those together, that T drops and disappears. So you get forget about it. Forget about it. Yeah, and you can hit that T at the very end of it because it's really not just running and breezing through. Yeah, you find that New York accents just kind of tend to blend the letters together. So it's like, forget about it. You know, that it just really sounds like one word, one thought. But when you're breaking it down, just to kind of forget about it. And that about, you know, between the U and the I, it's not super drops, it's more like a D, it's a bet. But yeah, just really soft. I can't, you're not really hitting that T. I know it kind of sound like I can stand it, but I can't stand it. It's just so subtle that it's almost not there. You could say I can stand it, but I can't stand it. Just that little subtle hint. But if you completely drop it, you just kind of get it in the context of what you're saying, it's going to come across. But you're really not hearing that I can't stand it, because that NTS combination really just doesn't flow like you get in the New York accent. I can't stand it. It's almost like correct pronunciation is getting in the way of letting the thought and the emotion and feeling express itself. So it's like, I can't stand it. So I'll just go back and hit those two sentences again. Just say them with me. Forget about it. Forget about it. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Okay, now this is going to be familiar. Intrusive R. So between idea, which ends in a vowel, and is, which begins with a vowel, we're getting that R sound in there, just like with the British accent. So instead of the idea, is to try to do it. It's going to sound like the idea is, ear, the idea is, and it's a little bit harsher R that's being intrusive, but it's that same R sound. So the idea is Detroit, and again, now this is a good one. Letter Y kind of has a rounded quality to it. It's almost like an OY, but it's Detroit, Troy, or Troy if you want to go that far with it. To Troy to do it. The idea is to try to do it. And again, remember, keep those lips wide and flat. The idea is to try to do it. I'll say it a little slower. The idea is to try to do it. The idea is to try to do it. The non-rhotic R, we talked about it briefly up there, but we'll take law and order. Now, LAW, even though it ends with a W, it still has that vowel sound at the end of law, and then going from law and, so we're getting the intrusive R between law and. Now, the non-rhotic R, we're kind of dropping that R sound in order, so it's almost going to be like an ODER. So it's going to, the law is going to sound like law, and then order is going to sound like order. Maybe a slight W in there, but it's going to sound like law and order. Law and order. Law and order. Law and order. Okay. Now we'll go to the L. It's almost non-existent. You take the word almost, it's going to be almost. Always. So it's going to sound like he almost always goes to the park. And again, that R is sort of schwad and drops like with order. It's going to be, he almost always goes to the park. He almost always goes to the park. Okay. Letter I, it's going to have in like an OI sound or an OY sound. You're kind of rounding up with it. So instead of like, it's going to be like. I like. Then, and again, there's a T at the end we're going to drop, like we did with forget about it. I like the nightlife. I like the nightlife. It's almost like you're saying that T in night as like a silent D maybe, but just the hint of a stop there without really hitting that crisp T sound. I like the nightlife, and rounding those eyes. I like the nightlife. Letter G. Actually, you know, they drop a lot of sounds in New York City, but they really like their G's. So they tend to pronounce some of them, it's particularly at the end of sentences, depending on whether or not it's, you know, it's going to, you know, a stressed word or not here. So we're going to play with this a little bit. It's going to seem contradictory, but this will give you an idea of what we're talking about with the G. So we're, again, the R is non-rhotic, so it's just going to be we're. We're hitting that first G, but we're kind of going to, or going duh, that T sound there, but we're really running the going into that short word there. So it's going to be going to. So we are going to Long Island. And now we're going from that G sound to a vowel. So we want to hit that G. So it's going to be Long Island. Long Island. We'll say it a couple times here. We are going to Long Island. We are going to Long Island. Okay. And then we'll hit the ORs and the IRs here. So world, you got that OR sound. So it's going to have a little bit of like little breathy. So world. it's not going to be a hard R, but just in that, like, it's like the O is like kind of dropping down a little bit before you get to that end of the sentence there. So you're going to hear joy to the world, world, rounding out, world. Now, if you're from old Brooklyn, you're going to get a little bit of Bugs Bunny in there where it's going to be woiled. You know, if you think Bugs Bunny or you think Curly from the Three Stooges, woiled, I'm a victim of circumstances. You know, that's that kind of oi, you know, we're getting there. But in general, you don't have to do that. But that's a good exception that I just wanted to bring up to show you some regional differences. So if you want some Brooklyn, it's going to sound like joy to the woiled, joy to the woiled. But in general, it's going to be joy to the world, joy to the world, rounding down as opposed to rounding up. Okay. And we're going to play with the IR sound. Now, when you have that IR, you're really dropping that R in there again. So it's going to be, I got the doit, doit, doit. And again, if it's Brooklyn, it's going to be doit, but really doit, doit, is you're just kind of rounding out. So we're not going to hit the T in got. It's going to be, I got the doit on him, doit. I got the dirt on him. I got the dirt on him. Okay. So I'm going to open it up to 2 or 3 quick questions before we hit the last part here. Anybody have something on the last 2 sheets that we just covered? Going once, going twice, and it's okay if you don't.
Just a comment, if it's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm in all of these. I'm so grateful to actually learn about the intrusive R that I hear, and I swear other people don't. You know, one of them for me is just hearing no. I swear I always hear no, no.
Yeah.
Is that right? Like, and I think I try to point it out to people, and they don't often hear. So I'm just grateful to hear that it's a thing, and that I'm not crazy and to really use it.
It is, and you're probably going to hear examples of what we've covered in other dialects. I mean, think of Boston or Northern New England, for example. You know, what they do with their R's versus what you might hear in, say, Louisiana or Alabama, you know, what they do with their R's. A lot of what we do is, it's not just trying to reproduce the sound, but understand why that sound is being made. And then once we kind of get in our heads, this is what a retroflex R is, and this is why we're doing it here. This is some place where they're inserting an intrusive R. We don't do that, but it's like, okay, that makes logical sense, and that can help when you're kind of breaking down a script for an accent that you're not familiar with, right? Or even if you are familiar and just want those little hints and stuff in there too. So yeah, it's great that you can kind of hear it and recognize it, and that's going to help you as well too. I mean, let's get into something like Russian, where it's just like not even in the ballpark of romantic languages, but some of these tools might be familiar to you in terms of, okay, well, this is how I approach, and at least I could say, okay, this rule also applies to this one. I got a head start on that too. So here is what I would like to do for the remainder of the session here. So we've got about half an hour to go. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be asking for volunteers. Now, we have the 2 side sheets that were also sent in that email here. What I'd like to do is give each of you a few minutes to look them over, mark them up, and I'm going to be taking this in order of volunteers. So I expect like for 5 minutes. Pick one of these sides. So you'll notice Petruchio and Viola use the New York City accent. Rosalind and Bottom use the Spanish accent. Pick one of those 4 that you would like to give a shot, and take the first 3 lines of that section and mark it up for that particular accent. And as I mentioned before, I wanted to do Shakespeare and I wanted to do it with non-British so that you're less familiar with the actual text and less familiar with the accent that you think belongs to it, so that you could focus more on the words as they're printed on the page and see which rules would apply to those words. I mean, is there an R at the end of the sentence here? Or is there a vowel sound followed by another vowel sound? If you could see and recognize those and make some quick notes, I'm gonna give you some time to choose one, mark it up. And again, I am not looking for perfection at all, but what I would like is that as soon as you're ready, jump in and say, hey, I wanna give this a shot. And then we'll have you slate, with your name and the piece you're reading, and then just give it the good college try with the dialect that you've selected using the notes that you have on there. And my feedback is not going to be about, okay, you did this wrong, you should have done that or anything, but just to give you an area to look at and play with and focus on for like the next time you go back and approach it and look at it there. So I want to make sure everybody has a shot to just read 2 or 3 lines of this, just to go through it. Take a couple minutes to mark it up. And I want to open it up to, if you still have questions that you want to ask me before I get a volunteer saying I'm ready, feel free to unmute and hit me with that question. I'll just stand by patiently until we're ready to go. And whenever you're ready, whoever's first and wants to give it a shot, that's totally fine. But I want to encourage you to at least take a few minutes to mark up a little bit. Okay, I'm just gonna call for volunteers in just a moment, but I got a message from someone. It looks like it may dropped out of the chat, but in case you're listening, there was a question um, that was sent to me in chat regarding the British accent to the word laboratory, and the question was, why isn't it laboratory? And the answer to that would be, if you're listening out there, is the accent on that particular word is in the second syllable. If it was like an English laboratory, where it's either the first or possibly the third, then you could probably say it laboratory. But in Britain, the accent's on the second syllable, so that's why it's more like laboratory, laboratory. That's why it sounds a little bit different there. So I just want to make sure, in case you're still out there and listening, that I got that question answered for you. Okay, so I think now would be a good time to see if anybody's ready to give it a shot. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to at least give it a shot once. Yeah, okay, great. Hey, hang tight just a sec. I just want to clarify for everybody that this is not going to be harsh. It's not picking apart. I'm not looking for good acting or anything like that. All I'm really doing is just wanting to listen to the sounds you're making and try to give you a good launching point and see where you can go from there. So so you said you're ready to go, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and have you slate it as if we were taking a recording. So go ahead and give us your name and the part you're reading, and then take a beat, and then just take us through the first few lines of what you got there, and then just stop whenever you're ready.
Okay. This is Edwin doing viola 12th night. I left no ring with her. What means this lady? Fortune forbid my outside have not charmed her. She made good view of me, indeed so much that sure methought her eyes had lost her tongue. How's that?
Yeah, that'll work. I'll go ahead and have you do it one more time. And so that was with the New York accent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so let's see. Is my outside? I was trying to get some notes. I was getting the sheet going here. So I go ahead and do it once more. And what I'd like you to do, just to play around with it, is let's get more of the vowel sounds. So I know I know we got a lot of like notes on the R's and on here, but I want you to try it, and I just want to let the vowels be the start. So for example, if you were to take the word forbid, where we're kind of get like forbid, let's hear that really that oh, and let's hear that I forbid.
Forbid.
Out, yeah, and then outside. Now that's a fun one because you got a diphthong there where you could really have to outside. And if you want to add a little bit of to the I, if you want to give it a little bit of Brooklyn, outside, just for fun.
Outside.
So
okay, I'll try.
No problem. And again, there's no right or wrong. I just want you to do the same thing you just did, but now play with the vowels and make them a little bit more colorful, make them spark a little bit more.
I left no ring with her.
Oh, and I'll stop one more time. This is one thing. The other thing I was going to mention. Go ahead and the shape of the lips. Get them like really tight. See if you can get them as wide and as tight as possible.
Wide and tight.
Yeah. And I know how I said add color to the vowels. I know it's going to be a little contradictory, and that's fun. But that's really, I think, going to add more character to it. So the wide and tight's going to get you the sound. But then when the vowels be the star, they're really going to have to try to push and force their way through those tight lips. Just play with it and have fun with it and see where it goes.
I left no ring with her. What means this lady? Fortune forbid my outside have not charmed her. She made good view of me. Indeed, so much that sure me thought her eyes had lost her tongue.
Good, good, good. Yeah,
I-
see, that, for me, I
Sorry.
was getting no. I was getting life and I was getting character, and there was really kind of coming animated for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's oftentimes just those little things, just those little reminders to yourself. Like the tightness of the lips, but then having to push those vowels out beyond that really just kind of
Mm.
gave it a nice little spark. So I want to thank you for being the first to volunteer. Good job. Appreciate
Okay,
it. Thank you so much. So who'd like to go next?
I'll try one.
All right. Go ahead and give us a slate and then just jump in when you're ready.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna try Bottom, A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Okay.
My
And
name
this
is
one
Arthur.
Spanish.
Spanish.
Nope.
Is it possible you could just help me with how to say I? Just like I?
You know what? If there's just the word I, just go ahead and say it as I. So you don't want to say e have had.
Yeah, that's
It
what I.
won't translate as well. So go ahead and just say that by itself as I. And if you want, you could diphthong it and make it like an I. I have had.
I have had a most rare vision. I have had a dream past the wit of man to say what dream it was. Man is but an ass if he go about to expound this dream. And that's all I got.
That's where you stop. Okay, no problem.
I
Yeah,
stopped there.
no.
Oh,
That was good. Yeah. So a couple things that I'd like you to really punch this time through. Make each of the S's really sharp. For example, in the word most, I know we're dropping that T there, but then let the S be the start. I have had a most rare vision. Yeah, and vision, we kind of want to make that ZH sound, but yeah, separate that out. Vision,
vision,
ISI, vision.
vision.
So yeah, so anytime there's an S, really let it stand out, make it the star. And then, and you have this in most places, but just make sure each W has an H sound in front of it, like wheat. And the have has that h, have, wheat, have, wheat. Yeah, and then yeah, be bolder with those, have fun. But the big thing is I really want the S's to really just shine. So just go ahead and have fun with it whenever you're ready.
I have had a most rare vision. I have had a dream. I'm sorry, it's hard.
It's okay.
Past the wheat of man to say what dream it was. Man is but an ass if he go about. It's have to have to do it so slow. If he go about to expound this dream.
And it's totally fine going slow. This is not an audition. This is your very first practice with it. You're taking the time to break it down. You're taking the time to recognize it. So going slow is exactly what you should be doing if it feels right for you. Don't kick yourself, but all about that. I thought it was great. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, and those S's were really fun and standing out, and there's really adding color to it too.
In the word about, you put the V in there, about.
Yes, so the the V sounds would make that about, and you can again break that diphthong. About, or about. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you. All right, who'd like to go next?
I'll go. I'll go since we're in
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
Spanish mode here.
No
Okay,
problem. no
I'm gonna
problem.
do Rosalind as you like it. And
All right.
I hope you do. All right. She was to imagine me. She's love. She's mistress. And I set him every day to whom me, at which time I would I be in both a Moorish youth, grieve the effeminate, changeable, longing and leaking proud, fantastical, uppish, and that's all I got to on notes. The rest
No,
of
no,
them.
no. That's totally fine. Now, this is one of those things where we didn't specifically cover it, but I had kind of touched on it a little bit briefly, that if you have to choose between um, faithful pronunciation as if it were a Spanish word versus trying to pronounce an American word, a United States word, I should say, lean toward the United States pronunciation. So particularly if the sound might be confusing or might need another word. So for example, the word liking.
I
If you,
circled that
yes,
because I didn't
yeah,
know.
no, but that's okay. That is totally okay. You're working on the sound and getting it visually. But if you hear it out loud and it says leaking,
Yeah.
we're thinking the actual word leaking. Something has a leak or a drip or something. So in that case, it's okay to cheat a little bit the other way and make it like an I sound or like an I,
Liking.
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 So you are still using the 5 vowel sounds used in Spanish, but you're combining them to make it sound more like something in American English. So liking. So what I would like you to do, and again, this is almost antithetical to what we're kind of practicing today, but I would kind of like you to speed through this reading. And we're kind of playing with the shape. And yes, it's going to be messy, but what I would like you to work with is trying to catch as much of the word, as much of the pronunciation as you can, as you're trying to move them through together, so that way maybe some of that American United States flavor can come back to the sounds of them, but still trying to hold as many of those pronunciations you just did. Keep those same notes that you have, but just go a little bit faster with it, just to kind of see if the speed will help the flow of what happens. Just see how it sounds, the difference between the two.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, if it's a complete train wreck, that's totally fine. That's why we're practicing it. Yeah.
He was to imagine me his love, his mistress, and I set him every day to whom me, at which time I would be in both a Moorish youth, crave, be effeminate, changeable, longing and liking, proud, fantastical, apish.
Yeah, and you did it. No, you did it with apish. I didn't even tell you that. That was another one. You're going apish the first time. This time you just went right in and it was apish. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So the first phase of learning it is breaking it down and figuring out how it sounds. And the second phase is just matching that shape and saying it. So speeding it up made you say apish in a way that sounded like it had a Spanish accent, but in a way that we would understand it as pronounced in the United States. So good job. Thank you.
And being, the word being, being.
Yeah, if it helps, you could start with baying, but if it gets to the point where it's like being, if it feels like it needs to be being, but you can have a little quality of the accent. So baying, Being.
Being, okay,
But
being.
turn it, but you can again turn it
Being.
into a diphthong. Ie. If you need to ie, and before you go back to being or being, whichever, I would personally go, I would just give it a little breath because again, I'm trying to say a word from the US English. Being. I would probably put a little H in between to say being.
Being. So you do
Being.
pronounce the B as a B, not a V.
Well, I think that it's again, I took a number of years of Spanish in high school, so I do still tend to close my lips the way I pronounce it. But for your sake, there's nothing wrong with just going Ving, Ving.
Vihin.
But you get that little, you
So
get a little bit of that
vihin.
touch, that B in there.
So it's a
too. So
hing, vihin. Okay, thank you.
Ving. That's what I would do if you're going to have two similar vowel sounds right next to each other like that. Get a little H in there, like we did with the hua, or the the W's and the actual H's, getting that little
Good.
sound in
Huing.
there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, we got about 10 more minutes. Who'd like to go next? And if you don't think you're going to be great, don't compare yourself to anybody else that's doing it. If you think you're going to be the absolute worst person to do it and you think we'd all get a good laugh and some entertainment out of it and really just enjoy our day, feel free to give it a shot and fail spectacularly. I'm not going to, I want you to at least do something that's uncomfortable in an environment where we're all supporting you and really just on your side, because we're really all in this boat together. Everybody's learning, and the people who are up here doing it know that they're not going to be perfect, and nobody's expecting that. And imperfection makes it a good opportunity here. Okay, so Judy, you've unmuted. Is that a volunteer for you?
I'll do it.
Oh,
Okay.
terrific.
We're doing Midnight Summer's Dream with the Spanish.
Okay.
And this is going to be your entertainment.
I'm looking forward to it.
Have had a rare vision. I have had a dream. Positivit of man to say what dream it was a man is but on us. If he go about to expound this dream.
Okay, great. Yeah, no. That was. I thought that was really good for a first shot at it. So, here's what I'd like you to go ahead and play with here. Is I would go ahead and circle all of the, unless it's the letter I by itself, meaning I, me. Go ahead, either circle or underline every other I that shows up in those first few lines there. And then once you do that, I want you to do the same thing you did, but for each of those I's that you circled, give it a really strong E sound, even if it's overemphasized. And again, don't worry. And this is something I want to say. I don't want anybody to worry about sounding stereotypical or cartoonish at this point, because we are really just trying to over accent and overstate these words as a learning tool. This is not our final performance. This is about training ourselves to make these sounds and make those shapes and doing them consistently. You can always pull back from the extreme later so that it sounds more natural. But if you're not used to making that sound, make that sound really bold and really big for now, knowing you can get it. And then once you feel comfortable with it, it'll start sounding second nature. So again, do the exact same thing, but really just make those E sounds, sing, and just really have fun with that.
Have had a most rare vision.
Okay, I'm going to stop you just a moment right there. Vision. Let's get both of those V, and then like I said, the S. So we'll make that an ISI separate. Vision. Vision.
Okay.
Because we really want those eyes to sing. And I won't stop you again, but just really have fun with
Okay.
those eyes.
War vision, a half hard a dream. Past the wheat of morn to say, what dream it was man is but on us if he go about to expound this dream.
That was great. That was great. And I'm glad you did that. And here's why. Because first of all, those I sounds were much stronger and more confident. Second, this is a really great example of how you can approach a script for the first time if you're unfamiliar with the accent. You don't necessarily have to try focusing on all of these elements at the same time. You could take one element and work on that. You could do all of the I's, mark them just that way, read through it, and then just thresh those I's. The next time you go through it, you can mark all of the W's and put an H in front of those so you can get those qua sounds, those qua. And then you've got qua and E. And then if you notice you're inconsistent on your A sounds, you can go back and mark those and just make sure you have the ah, like, or ah sound, like you're at the dentist. So like ah, you know, like have could be have, you know, those, you know, the V's and the B's and the stuff, but just take one element at a time, one step at a time. Doesn't have to be perfect all the way through, but you got a lot of those little elements. But even just focusing on that one letter I made it stronger. And I think you should be proud of yourself for taking the chance of doing this and knowing that you made a big step from that first one to that second one. And the next one you focus on in practice, you're going to take it. These steps will continue coming, and that confidence will come the more you work with each of those steps. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
All right. So I think we have time for one more before we wrap it up and turn it over. Up. Yes.
I got I'll go ahead and give it a shot.
Okay, terrific.
But I do have a quick question though.
Yes.
In Spanish, is the V's or B's, yeah?
There's a little bit of a difference to it. I mean, like the V sound is just the lightest P in there. And again, this can also be regional too. Some of the B's might be a little bit stronger depending on which region you're speaking from. But for the sake of what we're doing here, they're so similar together. There is no reason why at this point we just can't start off by making those letter B's as the same as if they were the V sound. Some dialects, they're pretty much indistinguishable. Yeah, so it just really depends on where you're coming
because I kind of been practicing with the B's, so
yeah,
I'll just give it a shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I'm not grading you for this, so it's totally fine. Yeah, so
that's good. Okay. All right.
So slate yourself whenever you're ready. No problem.
Yes, sir. My name is Steve Orsino, and I'm going to do bottom in Spanish. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. I have had a most rare vision. I have had a dream past the wit of man to say what dream it was. Man is but an ass. If he go about to expound this dream, methought I was, there is no man can tell what.
Great. So here's the one thing I'll have you play with in the short time that we have. I'm getting a lot of good H's in front of the W's, but I'd like to get a little bit of that H in front of each of the H's. So yeah, so just real quick, just make a quick mark on each H, just so that you can kind of get that, like I have had, get a little bit of that H. Like think of it as a KH. If you want to put a K in front of the H, if that helps for you, if you want to make a little Loch Ness monster drawing above it, whatever works for you. But yeah, just one more time. Let's just get that huh in front of each H.
Okay.
And whenever you're ready, no rush.
I have had a most rare vision. I have had a dream past the wit of man. To say what dream it was, man is but an ass. If he, oh, that's a hard one. If he
right.
could go about to expound this dream, me thought I was there. Me thought I was. There is no man can tell what.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it doesn't feel natural, you like you notice that part. Okay, this is difficult. This is something I can kind of go back and work. And sometimes it's a transition, no matter what you're working on, from a vowel to a consonant vowel, whatever. Yes, you want to jump in? Good.
How would you say the he then? He like
E, like I would go E. I would start with just pronouncing it as the vowels are. If he, and if the he doesn't really sound as much, I could bring it up a little bit, but I wouldn't go so much to start with, where if sounds like he. I still want to try to differentiate the vowel sounds. That's why when I started, I want to try to keep those distinct, but really those are a good starting point. So I would probably go if he go, and I might stick with that. If he go, that might be someone who's maybe learning English for the first time or is really new to it. But if someone who's been here for a number of years might end up saying if he go to, rather than having the he. But I would always start at the base. I would always start at the extreme and then just modulate from there once I feel comfortable with the sounds and the rules, and then get those rules before you start making it, that whole thing. But yeah, I think that if you hit that difficult spot, really break it down and pay attention to it. Do it several times until your mouth kind of learns that transition. Then once you do, then you can just kind of find that flow from there with repetition, and then at one point you'll eventually not even have to think about it anymore. But don't worry if that doesn't happen the first week or two. It's just all with practice. And then before I turn it back to Ray and Leslie to wrap up, I just want to finish on this note of first of all, thank you for participating, and thank you for your patience with this. This is normally something I do live with people, and I just pass the handouts out and everything here. First time I did a session like this, I was hoping to get things up on the screen. So this time I just emailed everything out to everybody. That seemed to work okay. And it's unusual for me to not hear everybody making those sounds, and I'm making it. So I'm trusting you were having fun with those. But I really do appreciate everybody being here. I hope that even for those of you who didn't feel comfortable enough to kind of jump in and volunteer, that you got something out of this. And then again, I really don't want anybody to compare yourself to anybody else, because some people might have a little bit more of a background that allows them to make those sounds a little bit quicker. We all start somewhere. But what I hope you do is that you take from this a couple of things. First of all, that if there is an accent that you are particularly interested in and you just want to jump and focus on that, feel free to do it. I've given you some tools, some things that you can find that you'll start out with that can apply to other accents that you're learning. If you want to start with these and you really want to focus on Spanish, or you want to focus on British, or you want to jump in and maybe try a Swedish accent, for example, I got a couple books that you can look at. Now, a lot of play publishers will have books and what were once upon a time referred to as CDs, whatever those are, that you can hear the sounds on here. But there are a couple of books that you can look at if you're interested that do a wide variety of accents and regional dialects. The first one's by a gentleman named Robert Blumenfeld. That book is called Accents, a Manual for Actors. That one's around $25. There's another one by Paul Meyer called Accents and Dialects for Stage and Screen. That one runs about $75. But those are both examples of books. We've got a variety of accents where you can dig in deeper to a lot of them. But if you're really trying to focus on one specifically, you can also go out and look for books and audio files specifically for that particular region, where it really breaks it down phonetically for you. And both of those books that I mentioned, they used to come with CDs. You might still find them with CDs, but now they also have an online component where I guess you can go to a website, enter a code, and then get streaming access to the audio files as well too. So I hope each of you at least had some fun with this. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes if you have any other questions for me, but before we do go, I just want to make sure Leslie and Ray have an opportunity to say anything they need to say at the end here. So thanks.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Ed. It was a fantastic job. And we're so thrilled to have you, to have a talent like you to share with us. Great job. And Leslie, thank you for hosting. She's going to give you all a recording of this workshop. We're going to see you next month, probably July 31st, if that's open, Leslie. And I don't know what we're doing yet, but we'll come up with something good. So thank you, and I'm out.
Oh, Ed, thank you, everybody. Can you repeat again the names of your two resources, and I'll put them in the chat?
Actually, I'm just about to copy and paste them into the chat now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
See if I can. Okay. Okay, it's not letting me paste. Okay, well, anyway, I'll repeat them. So the first one is called Accents, A Manual for Actors by Robert Blumenfeld, Blumenfeld. And another one is Accents and Dialects for Stage and Screen by Paul Meyer, Meier. And last time I checked, I think both of those are available on Amazon.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I don't know why it's not letting me chat on here. I'm going to try closing it, reopening it, and see if it'll let me paste at that point. But no, it doesn't. It just doesn't. Technology doesn't like me at all in general. So I'm used to it. But I'm willing to stick around if anybody has any additional questions.
Just a big thank you to all you. This is a great video. Good to have you.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you for participating, Judy. It was really fun. Thank you.
And are you still doing private coaching if we wanted to work on something specifically? And
I am, yeah. Right now, I'm just doing it by video. I'm trying to see when I might also be able to do in person, but based on where I work, I have to be particularly cautious about face-to-face, more so than others, I think. But I hopefully for the next couple months, things will be well enough where I'll be able to do that. But yeah, I'm still primarily weekday evenings and weekends. If you want to get a hold of me and you want some more details, I'll be happy to help you out with that too. Or you can always reach out to Ray, because he's if you're looking for people who maybe specialize with audiobooks or marketing or things like that, he's got a great supply of coaches as well too. So it doesn't have to be me, it's all good. My feelings won't be hurt, but find the person who can help you out with whatever you'd like, and I'm sure all of us would be more than happy to help you out.
thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ed. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed. I dropped 2 links in the chat. Ed, I think those are the books you mentioned. The one by Robert Blumenfeld. Yeah, okay. So Bookshop will order
I just can't enter it.
Oh, sorry. Bookshop
That's okay.
will get the books from your local bookstore, and you of course feel free to use Amazon. And then the second link is on Amazon, and I guess it's the right book because it's about $75, and
Yeah,
it's
I
titled.
think.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's titled Dialects for Stage and Screen. Is that the one?
Yes. There used to be a $99 version, but that was one that came with a bunch of CDs. And
Mm.
so they had released an updated version with, I think they added a few more dialects, but to reduce the cost. And since a lot of people don't have those CD drives or players anymore, they have the streaming audio available online. So it's so that's the $75 version is the newer one. The older version with the CDs, I think, is around $99. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for these resources. This has been very scary, but also very fun.
And scary's okay. It really is. I think if you're what I always tell myself whenever I get stage fright, it means, okay, that means I still care. If I ever reach the point where I'm not nervous about what I'm about to do, that means I'm not caring and I'm not invested in it and something's wrong and I may want to reconsider what I'm doing. But scary is good, particularly in the rehearsal process. If it's there's a difference between being uncomfortable with the material and being scared of how you're going to perform, you know, and affect audiences. And that scared part of like, oh, I don't want to fail. I don't want to let people down. That is just a sign that you want to do the best you can. So lean into that, lean into where you're scared and continue approaching that until you feel confident enough where even if you're still a little bit scared, you can at least fake that you're not. Yeah, a lot of confidence is just really about pretending to not be scared of something. You know, courage is about the way you handle fear, because if you're not afraid of something, what's the point of courage? So so don't be nervous. I'm not going to say don't be nervous. I should say don't be afraid of being nervous. See being nervous and being afraid as being that you still care about it and you want to do the best that you can. So it should always be a positive thing. You should welcome the butterflies anytime you're about to step on stage and audition, or hit that record button on your machine and talk into the microphone, even if you know you can go back and re-edit it. You know, it just means you care, and it gives you those little pinpricks that will help spark your performance as well too. So I just think it's great. So thanks for sharing that, and just enjoy the next time you get nervous about something and say, hey, that's a good thing.
I have a
Thank
question.
you, Ed.
What if you were to see, you know, on voiceovers, how many different dialects that are asked for? Is it more British? Is it more Spanish? I mean, what do you see more at, you know, more auditions for, things like that? Where should we be focusing on any one?
You know, I don't want to answer that question with a definitive, because sometimes the market changes, and a lot of times it's just at the whim of whatever's in vogue at time, or who happens to be hiring. It might just be coincidental. It might just be a matter of, oh, everybody's into the Queen now, so we're gonna, you know, we want more royalty. You know, maybe the Austin Powers wave or whatever it was. You know, maybe you know, we get someone in popular culture who's got a really thick you know, a Scottish brogue, and maybe that's where the trend ends up going. Or it might just be a matter of the product. You're probably not going to get someone with the Texan drawl doing a commercial for Lucky Charms, you know. So I don't want to guide anybody down the wrong path. I will say this though, if you're in terms of marketing, it's not a bad idea, particularly if you're going into character work, or maybe you want a variety of commercials to start adding more dialects to your repertoire. But don't feel like you have to learn a dozen at once. Start with one or two. Get really comfortable with those. And once you got those down, if you're ready to branch to another one, then go ahead and go in that direction. Add as you go. And then again, the more you eventually add, you might start finding those intrusive R's in several different ones that you're doing. You know what it is. You've already got a head start on those. But if you're talking about what should I start first, if you know you're going to be auditioning for a part with a specific dialect, by all means do that. Without that, I would say go for whatever you think you would enjoy the most. If you vacation on the Riviera, maybe you want to start working on that regional dialect that reminds you of maybe a particularly charming waiter that helped you out there, and you want to try to emulate that voice that you've heard real life before, and you like that. Or maybe you've just always been a fan of, let's say, oh, why not, Marion Cotillard, and you want to develop a French accent based on her performance. Maybe you're a fan of Amélie, and you love that movie, so you want to go French. If you are interested in it personally, then you're more likely to stick with it. If you're learning Russian just because you feel like, I have to learn Russian because I might get an audition for it 3 or 4 years down the road, but it's not really something that really sparks your interest, you don't have an upcoming audition for it that you're really shooting for, then it's going to feel more like a chore. Pick something that's going to feel like fun. So something that where, like with me, it started with Monty Python. I love Monty Python's Flying Circus. That's where I started with British dialects. And so now I can go back and I can watch certain sketches and try to say, okay, what's he doing with that voice, and how can I emulate that particular variation of the dialect? If there's a TV show that you enjoy, go with that. If there's a particular play or even a book, if you're a fan of Heinrich Ibsen and you want to read A Doll's House out loud to your family in a Norwegian accent, go Norwegian. pick whatever sparks you. Yes, I see another hand up there.
Yeah, it's me. Is there any one dialect more challenging than another? I mean, there must be, on the range of dialects, some might be easier to tackle than others, and I'm thinking maybe you should go, I don't know, for me, maybe I should go that way, try find something less challenging, work towards it.
Again, I think that answer is a little bit more personal because people have different backgrounds and exposures. I think that in terms of languages themselves, languages like Russian with the Cyrillic alphabet and Japanese with the kanji are harder to learn as a language. However, the accent itself, particularly like for Japanese, for example, they have like a particular, just like with Spanish, their vowel sound is pretty much consistent. So it might be easier to pick up a Japanese accent rather than maybe something like Norwegian or Swedish, where you might have variations on particular sounds depending where they're followed by a particular vowel or a consonant. And so I would say, I think actually Spanish might be a good one to start with, because in the United States we have a lot of Hispanic culture here. We have, if we wanted to, we could turn on Telemundo or and watch Spanish language. It's not hard to access that content. Particularly in the YouTube, we could just pretty much do that with any accent that we want. But in the United States, particularly in California and a lot of Southwestern states, there's a lot of language. Our capital city is Sacramento. We have a lot of Spanish heritage here, and because of that exposure, and because we most likely know people who if they don't know the Spanish language, if they haven't learned on their own, They might be native Spanish speakers or have family members that do, and you might be able to listen to conversations with them in English that you can listen for those elements of that accent. If you're close enough to them, you may even want to say, hey, I would like to learn this accent and how you're saying it. They might be willing to sit and work with you on that. But again, that's I know I'm kind of talking in circles, but it's a really hard one to say. Let me just finish by saying, I think the easiest ones to learn kind of tie in with the same thing, the ones you're most interested to learn. And whatever you've already been previously exposed to, whether it's through your neighborhood or whether it's through television, because you already have an idea of how they sound. I don't know that there's a lot of Russian that people are of, except maybe Chekhov from Star Trek. Oh, I think I may have lost my audio. I'm trying to reconnect.
Oh, your audio is good and even better than before.
Okay, is my audio back? I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. So, okay, good. So, yeah, the more you're exposed to it, the bigger head start you're going to have with it. But I think the way you should go if you're wanting to learn a language or a dialect is less about, is it the easiest one to learn? It's going to be like, is it going to be the most fun? Because if it's easy but not interesting, you're probably still going to drop off. But if you're really interested in it, you'll want to dig into those exceptions. You'll want to make sure you get those right. So it can be a factor in what you choose to go with. I just wouldn't make it the factor. I think if it's maybe a choice of between 3 or 4 of them that you want to start off with first, pick the one that you've probably had the most exposure to, because it will probably be at least familiar in how you know how it should sound before you start making the shapes, and maybe start from there. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Have a good
Thank
weekend.
you so much.
I'll send
Take
you the
care.
Thank
recording
you.
as soon as I get it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ed.
Bye.